Every single day, 69 million people walk into a McDonald's. They order a Big Mac. They grab their fries, they pay and leave. They think they just bought lunch. They didn't. They just paid rent. McDonald's is not a restaurant company. It never was. It is one of the largest real estate empires on earth, with over $40 billion in property on its balance sheet. The burgers, the fries, the Happy Meals, those are just the reasons your landlord can charge you rent. This is the story of how a struggling milkshake salesman accidentally built one of the most brilliant business models in history, and the financial lessons hiding inside every single McDonald's you've ever walked into. To understand McDonald's real business model, we need to go back to 1940, San Bernardino, California. Two brothers, Dick and Mac McDonald, open a small drive-in barbecue restaurant. Business is decent, but then they make a decision that changes everything. They simplify, ruthlessly. They cut their menu from 25 items down to 9. They fire their car hops and replace them with a self-service counter. They built a kitchen designed like an assembly line. Every burger made the exact same way, at the exact same time. They called it the Speedy Service System, and it worked beyond anything they imagined. By the early 1950s, the McDonald brothers were running one of the most profitable restaurants in California. Other entrepreneurs came to study their system. They even sold franchises to a handful of operators. But Dick and Mac McDonald had no ambition to build an empire. They were comfortable, they were happy, they had enough. Enter Ray Kroc, 1954. Ray Kroc is 52 years old and working as a milkshake machine salesman. Not exactly the profile of a future billionaire, he gets a strange call. A small restaurant in San Bernardino has ordered 8 of his multi-mixer machines, more than any customer he has ever had. Curious, he drives out to see why. What he sees stops him cold. Lines out the door, a menu anyone could understand. Food delivered in under 60 seconds. The same burger every single time. Kroc saw something the McDonald brothers couldn't see, or didn't want to see. This wasn't just a restaurant. This was a system, and systems can be replicated everywhere. He convinced the brothers to let him franchise their concept across America. They agreed, reluctantly. By 1955, Kroc opened his first McDonald's franchise in Des Plaines, Illinois, and then he hit a wall. Here is the problem Ray Kroc faced, and it is one that kills most franchise businesses before they ever get started. He was making a 1.4% royalty on every dollar franchisees brought in. On a 15-cent burger, that is barely 2 cents. Even with dozens of restaurants open, Kroc was barely breaking even. He was borrowing money to survive. He couldn't pay his own bills. And here was the deeper problem. He had almost no control. The McDonald brothers owned the original system. Franchisees owned their restaurants. Kroc was in the middle, doing all the work, taking all the risk, and keeping almost none of the money. By 1956, Kroc was desperate. He needed a new model, or McDonald's was finished before it ever really began. That is when he met Harry Sonneborn. Sonneborn was a former finance executive at Tasty Freeze, a competing ice cream chain. He was quiet, analytical, and saw numbers the way most people see people. Kroc explained his problem. Sonneborn listened. Then he told Kroc something that would make McDonald's one of the most valuable companies on earth. "You're not in the burger business," Sonneborn said. "You're in the real estate business." Here is exactly what Sonneborn proposed, and why it was genius. Instead of just selling franchises, McDonald's would find a piece of land, buy it or sign a long-term lease, then build a restaurant on it. Then, and this is the key, they would lease that restaurant to a franchisee at a 20 to 40% markup over what McDonald's paid. The franchisee runs the restaurant. They pay for staff, food, utilities. McDonald's just collects rent every month, rain or shine, whether the economy is booming or crashing. Think about what this means. McDonald's locked in long-term fixed-rate leases on the property, often 20 years, but franchisees paid rent as a percentage of their sales, which goes up as prices rise, as sales grow, as decades pass. McDonald's costs, fixed. McDonald's income, growing every single year. In 1957, Sonneborn set up a separate company called Franchise Realty Corporation to handle all of McDonald's property acquisitions. With the land as collateral, McDonald's could now borrow money at scale to fund expansion, open more locations, acquire more land, collect more rent. It was a flywheel. And once it started spinning, it never stopped. By 1960, just 4 years after Sonneborn joined, McDonald's had 228 franchised restaurants generating $56 million in annual sales. In 1961, Kroc bought out the McDonald brothers entirely for $2.7 million. At the time, the McDonald brothers thought they were getting a great deal. They had no idea what was coming. Let's look at what the Sonneborn model was built. McDonald's today has over 45,000 restaurants in 100 countries. 95% of those restaurants are franchised, meaning McDonald's doesn't cook a single burger in most of them. But McDonald's owns the land underneath 55% of all those franchise locations. That real estate is valued at over $40 billion on McDonald's balance sheet, representing roughly 99% of the company's total assets. McDonald's collects over $7.5 billion in rent every single year. $7.5 billion in rent from restaurants it doesn't operate. And here is the number that tells you everything about the genius of this model. McDonald's franchised restaurants operate at a 57% gross margin. Its company-operated restaurants, 15%. The less McDonald's actually runs, the more money it makes. In Q1 of 2026 alone, McDonald's generated $6.5 billion in revenue, with nearly $3 billion in operating income. For context, that operating margin is higher than Apple, higher than Google, higher than almost any company on Earth of its size, all from a company whose most famous product costs less than $5. So what do we actually take from this? Because this is not just a story about hamburgers. This is a masterclass in how the world's most successful businesses actually make money, and it is almost never the obvious thing. Lesson 1. The product is rarely the business. McDonald's sells burgers, but the business is real estate and franchise fees. Apple sells iPhones, but the business is the App Store and services ecosystem. Amazon sells books and electronics, but the business is AWS cloud computing. The most valuable companies in the world are almost never making most of their money from the thing they're famous for. When you look at any company or any income stream, always ask, what is the actual business model here? What is really generating the profit? Lesson 2. Own the asset, not just the transaction. Kroc's original model, taking a 1.4% royalty on burger sales, made him dependent on every single transaction. If sales dropped, his income dropped. Sonneborn's model, owning the land, gave McDonald's something different. An asset that appreciates over time, generates stable cash flow, and becomes more valuable whether or not anyone buys a burger that day. This is the difference between income and wealth. Income depends on what you do today. Wealth depends on what you own. Lesson 3. The markup is in the middle. McDonald's original genius was inserting itself between the landowner and the franchisee, buying at market rate and selling at a 20 to 40% premium. This middleman with an asset model is one of the most powerful in business. The company that controls the infrastructure, the land, the platform, the network, extracts value from every transaction that flows through it. Whether it is real estate, payment processing, cloud computing, or digital marketplaces, the company that owns the underlying layer almost always captures more value than the companies operating on top of it. Lesson 4. Stable income beats high income. McDonald's chose rent, which is predictable, contractual, and recurring, over restaurant profits, which fluctuate with the economy, consumer preferences, and competition. That stability is why McDonald's has survived recessions, pandemics, wars, and decades of food trend changes that destroyed its competitors. In your own financial life, the income streams that keep paying whether you show up or not, investments, rental income, royalties, recurring revenue, are worth far more than their face value suggests. Ray Kroc died in 1984, worth over $600 million. Harry Sonneborn, the man who actually figured out the business model, left the company in 1967 after a disagreement with Kroc over expansion strategy. He never received the recognition he deserved. The McDonald brothers sold their stake for $2.7 million. Today, that stake would be worth over $100 billion. Next time you drive past those golden arches, remember, you are not looking at a burger restaurant. You are looking at one of the most sophisticated real estate and franchise operations ever built, disguised as a place to buy a $5 meal. If this changed how you think about business and money, subscribe to Founders and Fortunes. Because every week, we pull back the curtain on how the world's biggest companies actually work. Next week, how WeWork's founder convinced investors his company was worth $47 billion, and then watched it all collapse in 90 days. I'll see you there.